A second witness in the Meyiwa Murder Trial is expected to take the stand this morning. It's following weeks of the trial being on a stop and go. The defense finally concluded grilling forensic officer Mosia. He was witness number one. So what do we expect from witness number two? Let's find out. Slindelo Masikane, once again at the North Gauteng High Court, covering the trial for us. Morning to you, Sli. Finally, Mosia done testifying. Take us through part of the highlights of what came out of court yesterday.
Yeah, so what we can definitely confirm to our viewers this morning is that Sergeant Mosia, the forensic officer, will not be returning to the witness box, and that is because counsel concluded their cross-examination as well as re-examination of his testimony. And of course, this began way back in April, and what we've seen for most of it is that the defense has been trying to really poke holes in the strength of the state's case against the 5 men accused, really bringing up issues around how that crime scene was initially treated before Sergeant Mosia could arrive to collect forensic evidence. We know that coming out of cross-examination, there are issues about the time frame, the length of time it took for Sergeant Mosia to be called to the scene. There are issues around how he collected evidence, that he needed assistance. The defense bringing into question whether he was skilled enough to even actually collect evidence from that crime scene. Some of those highlights, the bullet that was retrieved from the crime scene, no swabs were taken from it. We know that those who were in the house at the time of the murder, no gunshot residue was also swabbed from their hands. We know that before forensics could arrive, in fact, neighbors had already been in and out of the house. We know that from what we're told from those who were in the house, that they tried to save Senzo Meyiwa's life by rushing him to the hospital, but we don't know exactly where he was shot, Gareth, because it seems that somebody mopped the floors. Even though there are blood splatters on the walls, there was no blood that was found from the floors. We know that some doors also did not have fingerprint swabs taken from them, in particular the one that was allegedly used by the intruders. Those are just some of the highlights coming out of Mosia's testimony, but the most significant one being the fact that a statement from docket 375, that's the second docket, an affidavit that was deposed by Mosia, in connection with that docket, he concedes that he believes that there's a possibility that the crime scene was indeed compromised.
Now, you had a chance as well to speak to Mosia outside court, if I remember correctly. Just remind us what he had to say.
So we just had an opportunity to speak to him about, the past several weeks and how it's been for him in the witness box. I asked him in particular about anything that stands out for him in terms of what transpired that night. Let's take a listen.
The time which was the case was reported to me, it opened very much too many questions to me.
Yeah. What kind of questions were you asking yourself about how long it took?
What was happening before I received the call? I'm not sure what was happening before I received the call, but it was abnormal. It was abnormal. I've been attending to crime scenes, but that time frame is too much.
Yeah, 4 hours is a very long time.
Very long time.
So an abnormal crime scene as well from an experienced investigating officer as well. So what did Mosia actually say about how he handled the crime scene, Slee?
We know that at some point Mosia had left the crime scene to attend to other crime scenes because he was the only forensic officer on standby, attending to about 4 police stations or 4 areas on that evening. And so I think it also speaks to the capacity of police services because much of what transpired on that evening really speaks to some of the issues that we're seeing playing out in terms of the police services and whether there is enough capacity for them to be able to attend to such crime scenes speedily. So we know Mosia had to leave the crime scene at some point. A task team at a provincial level was then called to the scene, and he says that he simply was overwhelmed and needed help. Let's take a listen.
What I can say, that crime scene was very much complicated, and for me it was a bit heavier, and that's why I ended up deciding to, and I ended up doing the necessary to call people who can help me. Yes, it was going to be very much difficult for me alone.
Forgive me, by the way, Slee, I said investigating officer. Of course, I meant forensic officer. Forgive me for the error. We'll come back to you again a little bit later. Slindelo Masikane, going to be a very interesting day as we expect this second witness to take the stand in the Meyiwa Murder Trial.